Well, mindset. Mindset is so important in today's day and age, whether you're a real estate investor, traditional real estate professional, someone who wants to get into the business or been in business for a long time. With the high interest rates and the low inventory, mindset is more prevalent than ever before, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of gurus, there's a lot of things you can do with morning routines, but at the end of the day, you got to get to work. And so I'm really excited about bringing in today's guest, because he's someone who's a coach and someone that went from 0 to 70 retail units in 24 months. We have Kyle on the show, Real Estate First Technology. I'm super excited to have our guest today. How's your day? And welcome to Real Estate First Technology.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. So we're talking offline a little bit about mindset, a little bit about some of the content you're putting out there. And I love it because I was looking at your content, and views are great, but at the end of the day, people actually starting a conversation, commenting and adding to the conversation is great. And you definitely have people on your social media that's commenting and adding to the conversation, love what you're about and what you're doing and getting into it. Why real estate? Why real estate investing? How'd you even get into this world, man?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like many people, you start down a journey in life and you realize this isn't it. And for me, I went the college route. I got the degree. I got the great paying job.
Yep.
And 2 years go by and I'm like, okay, this is not going to work for the next 30 years of my life, right? Like low returns on a 401k, pretty low returns on a Roth IRA. I'm like, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
So, started just doing the information gathering period. And right around when I was about 24 years old when I started getting into the Grant Cardone stuff, the Brandon Turner stuff, right? Just reading all the books, doing all that. And it clicked for me. I'm seeing these people leave their jobs when they're early. I see they're building wealth. They're, everything that comes with real estate. And I'm like, everything that every wealthy person says is that they're not an uncommon man, right? They're just willing to do uncommon things. And I'm like, well, I can do that. I'm definitely a common dude, but I can do uncommon things. So I just started going down that route, man. And I bought my first one. And like many people that, have went down the real estate journey, you just need some compounding. And once you get compounding and you start rolling, it can really blow up. So long story short, wanted to get out of the job, and that was the interest.
That's awesome. So what were you doing previously for work?
Yeah, I was working for a industrial construction company. I was a project manager, traveled all over the United States. So was making good money, and we were doing like $100 million refineries. So great things came from it, great management skills, people skills, things like that. So but again, I was making someone else rich. So
100%. I love that. What do they say? Either working towards someone else's dreams and goals or your own. And it's awesome that you're doing, your own thing and making your own path. And so for any viewers and listeners out there, okay, we'll get into the mindset subject matter. Maybe they're working a job currently right now and they're at a place where they're like wanting to do something for themselves. They want to get into potentially investing, getting into some units, being able to have some passive residual income, because they talk about it all the time. Rich dad, poor dad, you want to have your passive residual income, certain amount of doors paid for, your living expenses. So even in today's market, right, when I entered the show talking about the low inventory, high interest rates, even my sister-in-law, who's been in the business for a while, is having a lot of success out of the Bay Area of California, is feeling this. And she doesn't have a lot of passive residual income. I even heard of a stat of 87% of real estate professionals don't even have passive residual income. So walk us through the story. So someone wants to buy their first unit, their first door, and start building passive. How did that work for you? The first one that you bought for yourself?
Yeah, I think the first one, which is a very underutilized strategy, is house hacking. I think someone should get in between a 2 to 4 unit, especially if they want to go to the residential route. And if they're worried about, I don't want to be over leveraged. I don't have a lot of money. Well, they just changed multifamily to where you can put, I think before it's 15%. Now you can do 5%.
I heard about that.
Now it's 5% down on a 2 to 4 unit, live in there, rent out all the other units, clean it up, make sure that you're buying something that you can work on and fix up and put some sweat equity into it. Turnkey is super tough. I don't care where you are. Turnkey is super tough right now. So you want probably a value add property. But if I was to go back, that's what I would do. I'd buy a 2 to 4 unit. I would house hack, and that'd be my first one. Because what you do in that, in my opinion, in this going to a 2 to 4 unit house hack, You gain knowledge. It's pretty low risk. You have pretty great long-term potential, really.
Yeah.
So that's what I would go first one out of the gate, because it's, again, low risk. You get into
Mm-hmm.
a unit, you understand the properties, you understand how to
Yeah.
manage them, everything that goes into it. And after that, maybe you change your strategy a little bit. But I personally like that one as a first time investor.
I love that. I love that. So anyone who's listening and viewing right now, take some notes. Definitely think about what you could do with having some doors, two, fourplex, threeplex, whatever. But I like what you said, Kyle. Just keep it simple. Own one. Instead of where you're at before, as far as how much you have to put down, a lot less that you have to put down now, and live in one, rent out the others. And you were right too. I mean, property management ties into that. How do you handle people and deal with the various nuances of sometimes, conflict comes up, right? At the end of the day, you have to, come from a place of serving, supporting, hey, I understand, get it fixed, whatever the case may be. Because I know a lot of people have a hard time with the thought process of like, all right, how do I property manage, or how do I find a tenant, someone to move into these other units, let alone fixing it and getting it going and finding the contractors. And I feel like people can get so overwhelmed with all of the pieces till they just like don't do it. A lot of people, I feel like it's like that's as for. So how do you manage that process of like getting in? We'll start off with like buying it first, right? And then would you suggest putting someone into the other units ASAP? Would you suggest like starting to do some fix to it and before you bring someone in there, painting, carpet if they have money? Like what would you start? Kind of like an ABC process.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I'll just say before I hop into that, like, it can be super overwhelming when you're just getting started. And that's why it's important to have your ducks in a row. And, and it's like not like plugging or anything for myself, but
Yeah.
if you're a part of groups or coaches or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, relying on other people to help guide you through it, or listening to these podcasts, right? Is super critical for you to have a sense of direction. Because if you don't have a sense of direction and you don't have the right information, it's never going to work. So
Mm,
if I was somebody and I was just getting started, I would be a part of a group. I'd be listening to a podcast continuously while I'm going through this process.
love it.
But what I would do is I would move into one of the units, right? And like, I'm talking cosmetic updates. I'm not talking foundation problems, roof
Okay.
problems, siding,
Okay.
none of that. I'm talking cosmetic, where it's outdated. You can paint the cabinets, update hardware, new carpet, updated LVP, things like that, right? You walk
Okay.
in, you're like, decent structure, but old. And then what I would personally do is I'd rent out, let's say it's a 4 unit. I'd rent out, let's just say it was vacant. I would rent out all the units. So say
Okay.
3 units, you move into the one, rent
Okay.
out the 3 on a month-to-month basis, move into the one, fix up the one, just as you like. In this case, people have a job, right? Like, you're not getting into a fourplex and leaving your job. So you have money
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
So as money comes in, keep cleaning up your unit, cleaning up your unit. During this time, I would personally self-manage this, because there is risk in self-managing if you don't know what you're doing. But again, this is why you learn, right? You gather information.
Yeah.
I would personally self-manage in this scenario, because if you don't know how to manage tenants, you can't manage a manager while they're managing your tenants, right? So
So true.
I would live in mine. I would fix it up as time goes on, keep the other 3 on a month-to-month lease. Once mine's fixed up, I would raise rents to what everyone else is doing. I would have you could have a conversation with the other 3 tenants and say, "Hey, I've got this brand new
Oh,
property, up $200, love it. Move them in. You go into that other unit, and you just keep doing that all the way through." And to a lot of people, if you have a family of 4, like, this probably isn't the way, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess I'm talking to a person that's a single mom, or a husband, wife, or a single dude, whatever it is. I understand that not everyone's life circumstances fits this, but you
Mm-hmm.
can do it with a side by side duplex.
Mm-hmm. I
Long
love
story
that.
short, that's what I would do, man. I would look for something that needs cosmetic updates. I'd live in one unit. I'd rent all the other ones out on a month to month basis, and then I
Yeah.
would just start stacking all of them.
Dude, that is so smart. And what comes up for me is so my wife and I, we do Airbnb, superstar Airbnb host on that end, just for passive residual, exactly what we're talking about. And I love, like you just said, talk to, like, we talk to our guests, and what we do is anyone that stays with us, we say, hey, we're putting the money back into the home. We have this upgrade, this happening, and what have you. And now it's going on 24, 36 months. And we have repeated guests because they're like wanting to come back, wanting to see what's new, excited because they loved the, game night that we had, or they love how close we are to Scottsdale, whatever. And they can be able to enjoy that stuff. So I love that for anyone who's viewing and listening. You could, like Kyle said, get a twoplex, keep it super simple, or duplex, and then rent one, have the other. Tell the person up front. That way it's already kind of premeditated and you're forecasting like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Would love to be a part of this. So you can be able to take over my unit. It'll be nice and fresh and brand new. Then I'll take over yours. And then, who knows what the future has, even though probably the person is going to move out. Like, what do you have done? So I love that. So now you have 2, 3, 4, now you have 70. So now you're probably property managers and there's a whole slew of other things going on. How do you manage all the things?
Yeah, man. I mean, so right now, like we in-house, what we take care of is acquisitions, construction.
Okay.
And then after that, I still use third-party management. I'm doing some things right now with a management company where we're working out a little deal. I want to get into, I want to say in some of the procedures that are done.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't have any ownership of a property management company. So we take care of acquisitions, we take care of construction. Obviously, I have a construction background, so it just makes sense for me.
Yeah.
So construction company coupled with, value add properties, it works really well. But dude, I'll tell you what. So I'm sitting at rate just shy of 80 right now. And I would say the biggest piece is just buying right. If you buy right and you have multiple exit strategies, you're going to crush no matter what it is. So like I added in some flipping to increase capital and it really, so I kind of have like flipping and long-term rentals kind of running hand in hand. So let's say buy one flip, we'll buy one rental. And the reason being is we were able to accelerate our renovations, accelerate, our growth, because if we just did a flip and made 30 grand, I no longer care if we made a $2,000 mistake. I'll just toss money at it, right? So for me, I'm like, if we, before when I first started, if we had a $500 mistake, it was scary. Like when you have 2 units, 3 units, $1,000, $2,000, it's scary. So I knew in adding in flips, and we're starting to get in a little bit of wholesaling now, if I could increase capital, working capital more specifically, we could overcome obstacles way faster. So someone calls us, Kyle, we've got this. What do you want to do? Just take care of it, because at the end of the day, the quicker we can increase volume and push out properties, it's going to pay off 10 times over,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's interesting that you talked about the flip side. My wife and I just got an offer this morning. Let's go on one of our flips. And so we're going through what you're talking about, right? So we're like 4 or 5 flips in. And so we retired her from teaching. So now we're like, hey, there's money sitting there. Let's do something, right? So now she has her tea company. She's full-time. She's crushing. She gets back from BNI today, and it's just like, all right, we got an offer. And so, yeah, we lowered it by 5. This is 10,000 under. So we'll meet them in the middle and say, hey, we'll meet you at like whatever it was, like 65. So we do like 55 plus here in Arizona, a lot of retirement communities. But like you said, like there's not a lot of wiggle room. And so not until Jan 1st is when we're going to be buying whole property outside of the Airbnb stuff, and our property next door is our friends of ours. We're managing their stuff. The guy's a private pilot, but yeah, it's a dicey game at the beginning. And to then get to that point where it's like, how many long-term holds do you have for that cash flow? And then also doing those flips. And then we thought, hey, we'll get this property at 13 grand, sell it for 80, 90 all day. Market took a dump, and now we're like selling it at 65. Still great. Hey, we're going to make 25,000, but still it's like, dude, like, and it's, and I feel like anyone who's listening right now, it's stressful at the beginning phases. Cause you're like, oh my God, like, am I going to have enough money to do another flip? Like, then we want to buy our next buy and hold, like, so I understand exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think, 2 years ago in, 2019, 2020, you could have bought a stick and it would have appreciated at 50% tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But right now with just the margins, this shouldn't scare anyone necessarily, but just be more aware and maybe taking more time to make sure you know what you're doing. Like the margin for error right now is super small. We like similar story to you. We had a property we bought for 55,000. We put 40 grand into it. We were getting ARVs at like 160. I'm like, dude, we're gonna crush this one.
Yeah, yeah.
And we just put it under contract at 130. I mean, we're still
Oh,
gonna make money, but a
yeah,
$50,000 flip just got cut in half.
yeah,
Um, so if I was to give any advice to someone, is don't be lean on your flips. Like if you're expecting 50, 60 grand on a flip, you're probably going to be okay, because if the market corrects, you can still make 20, 30 grand. But if you're at 20,
yeah,
30,000 and you have a 5 to 10% differential, like a change, everything potentially could go upside down. And that's not what you want for investors. I don't
no.
want to see people have a bad experience, and it's just, I know a lot of stories of people doing their first flip or have one rental unit and they manage it themselves and they hate it. And I'm like, guys, it does not have to be this way.
Yeah. And what's interesting is in this market right now, time of filming, we're the 29th of November of 2023. You would think with the low inventory and the high interest rates, and especially like for us, we're in like the 55 plus community type thing where they've retired, they should have cash in the bank, shouldn't be an issue. You know, it's different. It's not like it was in 2020, 2021, 2022, where people are getting 20, 30, 40,000 over lists. It's like completely shifted, even with low inventory, right? And even if you have cash, I feel like with so much uncertainty in the market, it's like people are still like, no, and they're trying to get as down as low as possible, even though there's less options with inventory. So it's an interesting market out there right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I would say if someone's going out there, right, like there's many ways to mitigate it. And one of the ways to mitigate it is just having multiple exit strategies. Like, does it work as an Airbnb? Does it work as a long-term, mid-term rental? Does it work as a flip? So if you have options and you have extra, like another thing, I would make sure you have extra working capital in today's climate. Like if you have
Yeah.
a little bit extra, working capital and you can overcome some obstacles, it just helps you sleep a little better at night, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also nice too. Thanks to our sponsor, Liftoff Agent, we have hundreds of agents across the country and already have residual income coming in from the clients that work with us on a monthly basis. So that's all side fun projects. But for anyone who's listening, who's working a 9 to 5, that's going to transition into this, definitely got to be safe, got to be careful. And let's talk about that, because Kyle, you're a coach, right? And it sounds like, I know like it's one thing to have the success, go through the process, another thing to coach and the mindset and serve other people to do and follow your footsteps so they potentially could have generational wealth or create a legacy or quit their job. Let's talk a little bit about coaching. Is this something that you offer for our viewers and listeners? I would love for them to, connect with you down below, links. How does that look like as far as someone reach out to you and go through kind of mentorship coaching? You have a program?
Yeah, man. So first of all, I'd say just going to my Instagram, which is KJ_root, and just shooting me a message, tell me a little bit about what you got going on, what you're looking to do, and then we just hop on a call and we see what we can't do for you. And we do one-on-one coaching and group. So one-on-one
I love
obviously is
that.
just you and I, and then a group is me weekly. I get in with the group. I give you the plan. Basically, the plan. You just don't have one-on-one access. It's just in a group setting. We
Okay.
bring in investors, lenders, everyone, hard money lenders,
That's awesome.
Airbnb hosts, the whole thing, so people can get a good understanding of what they're trying to do. Um, but yeah, man, we really make it simple. I think there's so much information out there, and people just get overwhelmed. It is overwhelming. I mean, when you
It
have
is.
people telling you storage facilities, short term, long term, nope, you better go, commercial. Geez, you better not buy anything under 20 units. It's like, where do we start here, right? Like,
Yeah.
where do we actually start? And so my niche is 1 to 4 units. That's what I buy.
Okay.
1 to 4 units, and I buy it at scale. I don't own anything outside of that. I don't own short-term rentals yet, but I will get into that. But everything's 1 to 4 unit long-term holds, and we do it at scale. I just simplify it for people. It's a 12-week program. At the end of the 12 weeks, I guarantee that you have a property exactly how I'm buying it. Otherwise, I work with you up to a year at no extra cost. And I think
Wow.
it's just it's a proven method, right? Like, I've done it now 80 sometimes. I've done 40
Mhm.
flips, and like, kind of like we were talking about, if you can have someone by your side helping you navigate these these mental barriers. They're not even so much information barriers. It's just people look at information and they will implement their own thoughts. It's like, to get from A to B is pretty simple, but to get to
Yeah.
A to B with all the mental barriers, it's really, really hard. Like, people
Yeah.
create and manufacture issues that aren't even there yet. And you just have to have the ability to remove that for people and pretty soon a light bulb will go off, and I tell everyone this: you will have a light bulb moment in real estate, and at that
Mm,
point, you have tons and tons of power because you're like, I got it, and then you
yeah.
start implementing people into your team, and good things come from that. So I think just having some people to rely on, groups or one
Mm,
on one, whatever it is, right?
yeah.
There's a lot of good things that come from that.
Wow, I have to say, so true. The mindset portion is so true. It's so easy to, whether you're a small business owner, traditional real estate professional, investor, it's like removing the emotional connection to a business transaction or decision. It's like, oh my God, like you said, not be, if you have extra cash reserves, like hold on to that so you can sleep better at night, because so many people do get stressed out. And that's where it's like, the rubber meets the road. Just as a quick story for a side note, who's ever listening, who's ever viewing or listening, like my wife, right? Her quitting her job, that mental barrier of quitting a job. And you're so used to getting that paycheck being fed, and you just have a schedule and you just follow the process, to then getting into a fix and flip type situation. And then those nuances, and then, having, your whole life savings tied into something. And you're like, whoa, what, now what? And this and that. And it's a total different mindset and a shift. And so, whoever's listening and viewing, it's awesome, Kyle, that they could send you a DM and you'll meet with them and talk with them as the individual who's actually doing it. Because I know at scale, you got Peace Morby and some people are out there that are helping thousands of hundreds of
For
thousands
sure.
of people. He's in my market. And side story, I had no idea who he was. And I moved out here and I had a few people say like, oh, you and Peace, like you remind me kind of him. And so I sent him a direct DM and he saw it. I sent him a video message, never got back to me. He's probably not running his Instagram. And if he is, he's a busy guy. So I learned to find out, like, you don't have access to people like that unless you're at their level. Right. And the fact that you are actually talking with people, meeting with people, and you're still, you're at a good level, but you're still like giving your time. I think people really need to understand that, like, that's huge, because so many people can buy courses out there. And oh, did you see Cyber Monday and Black Friday and how many additional ads came up for people's courses? Whether it's a
Mm.
coach or a guru or whatever, right? It was
I mean,
like,
I could have dropped $1 million on coaching just through my DMs
yeah,
or like through my ads and stuff. I'm like, geez, guys, I didn't know you're doing this.
dude, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah. And then, like, I'm seeing like Ty Lopez come out of the woodworks again and all this type of stuff. And it's just like, whoa. And so that's why I like our podcast and this opportunity where, everyone's just average. We're all average people just doing above average things and getting ourselves out of our heads to have more success, for financial wealth and abundance, and whatever you want to call it, legacy. And so that's why I love, having someone like yourself on, Kyle, because now whoever's viewing and listening can check out your social media, build the know, like, and trust, automatically see if they're going to connect with you or after this podcast, and then reach out to you, and then you're there to serve. So thank you so much for putting that out there for people, to help people, to give them the opportunity. And I'm hoping someone does reach out to you from this show, and you can serve one more person and help them potentially quit their job, generational wealth, or whatever the case may be. I love that. So let's get into a little bit of, like, what does the future hold for you, man? Like, you're doing what you're doing. You now have more financial wealth and abundance. I'm sure you have more freedom than ever before. What is it? 300 units? Is it a bunch of courses?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I always tell myself that I'm going to stay grounded in what brought me here, right? And that's being a
Oh, I
real
like
estate
that.
investor first, not a coach. And I think a lot of people build their life off of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want to do that to people. Like I want, I want to show up to a group call and be like, guys, I just closed on 400 units. Not, yeah, guys, I haven't bought in like 6 months, but this is how I do it, because the market's ever changing. Like, what a fraud would I be to not be an active investor? And what actually brought me here was being an investor, right? Like, in telling people how to buy. I mean, after a year from 2021 to 2022 to 2023, if I had never bought in that time period, I'd be a terrible coach today, because I'd still be going off of 21 methods. And those 21 methods do not work today. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think far as the direction goes, I don't plan on stopping, right? Like, I have a number in my head, like 500 I will for sure hit. 1,000, I don't know.
Wow.
2,000, I don't know, right? Like, I don't really know. But I have 500 in my head that I want to achieve in the next two to
Okay.
3 years. And we're gonna vertically integrate things. So right now I do a lot of like private. I don't personally do private lending, but I use private lenders to initially buy, right? Initially
Yeah.
buy, renovate, that whole thing. But I want to open up a hard money lending company so
Love it.
we can own the short term lending. I can own the construction company. I can own the acquisition company. And then from there, who knows what happens with property management. But if I have ownership, I can lead direction. If I don't have ownership, it's hard for me to lead direction. But with that, you have to do it the right way. Like I can't just start all these companies and it just be me, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
starting to hire people, bring people in. Like one of my clients actually is now working for me. He crushed it. He bought like
That's
13
awesome.
units. Yeah, bought 13 units in 6 months, and he's now working for me. So like a lot of the people that join my team, I've just kind of met through either buying a house from them or whatever it might be. So yeah, man, I think what's next is building out, continuing to build up my construction company so we can increase, because acquisitions for me is not a problem. The thing
Yeah.
for me is I have plenty of deals, but I can't renovate as fast as I want to. So we're gonna continue working on the construction company. Next year, my goal is to have a hard money fund up and running. So pretty much we dictate everything other than title work and long-term financing debt. So,
Wow.
and property management. So that's it, man. I just
That's
continue to
amazing.
add pieces and try to grow from there.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And it's great too, because you could potentially integrate those other pieces and be a comprehensive A to Z type service, which would be huge. But I love the fact that you had that 500 number in your head and then potentially the 1,000. And I think that a lot of people get caught up getting into a little bit more of the mindset subject matter, caught up on all the things like you talk about in your social media, whether it's a good morning routine or whatever it is, and the books and the information and the courses and the overload of everything. And I feel like if people were just to keep it simple, stupid, not calling anyone stupid here, just saying if you just keep it simple, you can then have more success where it's like you've started, you're at 80 now, you want to be at 500, you already put the number out there in 3 to 5 years. So now your whole entire existence and focus point is to get there, right? And everything should support that. So this podcast supports that, because if someone watches this and they potentially want to get into your ecosystem and get coaching from you, and they start to work with you or work for you, it ties into that process. So anyone who's listening and viewing, just like think about like, what do you want in life? Doesn't matter how you need to get there, but what do you want? And is that to quit your job, travel the world, have passive income so you can just control your own schedule, whatever? Like, I think that's so important for people to think about. And in mindset, like, how do you keep yourself? Does that 500 number in the next 4 to 5 years, does that help you wake up in the morning and keep motivated day in, day out? Like, what motivates you?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I am not a unit count person. And that was one of the things I was going to
Okay.
mention is I think that a lot of people get caught up in, and I've done this before. I got caught up in chasing somebody else. There's someone here that's
Mm,
local to me that owns like 2,500 units. And in my head, I'm like, I
wow.
got to catch him. I got to catch him. I got to catch him. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're chasing, this person's not you. He wants a different life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, what gets me going in the morning, honestly, is waking up, talking to my team. It's like, hey, how can we increase our volume? If we just worry about our inputs, our outputs are going to be there. Like I'm not worried about how do we get to 500 units. I'm like, hey, we only got 2 acquisitions last month. How do we get to 3? How do we get to 4? How do we get to 5? And in 5 6
Mm,
years, the results are going to be there. I'm not so like results driven. I'm more
yeah.
like process driven than anything. And building a good
Mm,
team and changing people's lives, like the people on my team, I want them to go buy real estate. If I miss out on an opportunity because they were able to, fine, so be it. Like there's going to be plenty of opportunity out there for me, you know? And
I
I
love that.
think, the listeners out there, I would just say, like listening to me saying 80 units, if you don't have any, just listen to the information. Don't listen to like where I'm going. And if you feel overwhelmed by what I'm saying, guys, do not listen to what I'm saying about 500. He's got a construction company. I can't do this. I started out by house hacking a duplex. I overpaid for it. I was negative cash flow. So like not every story is an amazing story, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
people make mistakes. All you have to do is start. Just take one step. Don't get overwhelmed by all these people that own 3,000 units, 10,000 units. Like you need one before you can get to two, right?
100%. Amen to that, man. 'Cause I have to say, to kind of put bookends on that, the one thing that comes up for me is that the 500, the 1,000, the 2,700 units, they won't remember you. They won't say anything about you. And it's just an object. It's just a thing. It doesn't mean anything. The people and the relationships and the people that you serve and support, like that's legacy. That's true legacy. I feel like people get so caught up in the money or the numbers that they forget about, and you don't want to be a Scrooge here, right? Or 'tis the season, Christmas is around the corner. It's not about the money, it's about those relationships. It's about your team. And I love that you're willing to give up a good deal to help someone on your team, because that's going to help them have deal number one or deal number two. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's so true. As soon as you get to a certain point, like you're good. Like you don't need more. But at the end of the day, it's just going to happen by default, because you have time still here and lots to do. So you're not just going to stop tomorrow. But good for you, man. Good for you, Kyle, for really going in that direction and being more of a servant and being a mentor and being a coach and being someone that wants to help facilitate and see more people grow and have success with that. And I like how you said, don't think about all the things, just keep it simple. Just
For sure,
one
man.
at a time, So in closing, I want to be respectful for everyone's time who's viewing. Also, for yours as well, Kyle. We talked about 30, a little after we have some time to do the podcast. What would you like to leave in closing? There's a ton of things that people can go back and listen to and gather. But in closings, something practical, something actionable, someone can take right after this episode, apply to their life. What would you like to leave for our viewers and listeners as we close out in today's show?
Yeah, I don't remember who exactly quoted this, but someone once said that we don't have an information problem, we have an implementation problem. And if we had an information problem, then, or if we had an implementation problem, then this world would be completely different, right? Like,
Yeah,
everything is out there, online, videos, webinars, everything, books, this podcast. There's so much information out there. The problem is the time frame between where the information is and when it's implemented is why people don't drive the results. So once you have a goal, like, don't set so many 5 or 10-year goals. Like, have a direction on what you want in your life. Like, if you want 1 unit in the next year, what if you were able to shrink that and do it in 6 months? And then what would you have to do in month 1 to achieve in order to keep you on track for that goal? And then what do you have to do every single week? What do you have to do every single day? And if we could just focus on our inputs daily and that compounds over time, you're going to find a result. But don't let days pass. Don't let weeks pass. Don't let information bury you. Focus on implementation. The greatest way we learn is through implementation. It's not through information. Information is just that without the implementation part. You don't know if it works for you until you implement it. So take the information, implement it. Don't allow that time frame to be really, really broad. Tighten the time frame and just keep learning. Like, just start. Just go down the direction and just start.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. I think that was very well said. Appreciate you being on our show today with Real Estate First Technology Unleashed, which is just, we're here to serve, give back, support the industry as a whole. And so I hope one person took something from today's episode that they can apply to their business, have more massive success. Kyle, thanks so much for being a guest. We do appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. And thanks, Liftoff Agent, for sponsoring the show. Thanks so much for waiting to the end of the show. Like, subscribe, notification bell. All of Kyle's information is down below. And like I said, it is our intention for you to take things from our show to apply to your business and have more massive success. And we will see you all on the next one.